They're coming. They're coming your way. They'll be here soon. Will you be ready?
Today, I want to keep it simple and clean. Let's talk about Giygas, the ever-embodiment of evil, the universal cosmic destroyer, the almighty idiot. If you're not familiar with the story of Earthbound, trust me when I say you're not alone. Nowadays, I feel like people haven't really talked about Earthbound that much, and it's kind of fading away due to Nintendo's negligence, so yeah, that sucks, but it can't be helped. Though what I can tell you about Earthbound is that it's an incredible RPG with charming characters, wonderful graphics, stellar writing, and just an overall purity, charisma that's rarely ever seen, if ever, by most games nowadays. You play as this kid from Smash Brothers known as Ness, a psychic who goes on wild adventures with 3 other kids that weren't really good enough for Smash. Really, the gameplay is a lot of fun, and the mechanics are super unique, like nobody's done anything like this ever since. Well, maybe. I don't know. I'm sure someone in the comments is ready to prove me wrong. My point is, at the time, and even now in some ways, Earthbound is a unique experience. It's just a shame that it's an Undertale clone. Could probably grow its own legs if it didn't depend on that. Yet, there's a lot of cool things about Earthbound, honestly. Also, a lot of creepy things too. Yeah, I know the main topic is Giygas, but even I acknowledge that there's other creepy aspects about the game that's often overshadowed because of him. Like the Happy Village being full of cultists and weirdos based on the Ku Klux Klan, and Shinrikyo, that cult that, did the whole sarin gas attacks in Japan that killed a lot of people. There's also that one part where Pooh has to finish his training by meditating atop of this hill called the Place of Emptiness, which I felt was very clever because you were forced to do nothing, yet some NPCs try to distract you and you just have to ignore them. It's here a real scary looking face just sort of pops up and tells you in order to finish your training, he needs to rip your legs off and rip your arms off, feed it to the crows, and cut your ears and gouge your eyes out. It's actually really surprising to me that nobody really talks about this scene. Maybe it's because that one part is super short and honestly most people are concerned about Giygas as a whole, but honestly, it's mutilation. This child gets his arms, legs, and all sorts of parts of his body get fed to crows, and in a way it's a graphic scene. I mean, it's taken away your eyes and your hearing. I mean, ugh. Well, there's plenty more stuff in Earthbound that's really spooky, but I figure there's no bigger, badder creep than, of course, Giygas, who has earned the reputation as the most disturbing final boss ever in video games. First, before you ever encounter him, you have to go through the Cave of the Past, which is already playing this eerie music that really plays up the final battle, but not in an epic way like, oh, we're about to save the day, but more in an you should be scared right now sort of way. Then past that, you're in the Devil's Machine, a device made to stabilize Giygas' power and mind and essentially make him invincible. A lot of people have speculated that this machine looks a lot like a woman's uterus, going so far as to say that the machine is symbolic of a womb, which makes sense as this machine is technically supposed to be, in a way, giving birth to Giygas. Well, we'll talk more about that soon, but first, let's focus on the encounter itself. Pokey, or Porky as he's originally known, starts off as a sort of annoying character in the beginning, but now is turned into this real huge dickhead villain, and he actually just taunts you as well as Giygas in some ways by calling him an almighty idiot, and fights you head on before he actually unleashes Giygas to you. And this is the part where Giygas just unleashes his raw fury on you. This is where the insane boss battle begins, the one that haunted everyone's dreams forever. Giygas has lost all sensibility, his mind is warped, his body is incomprehensible, his power beyond godlike. You're now trapped in this dimension unlike your own, one made entirely by Giygas, now neither in the past, present, or future. You are all alone, in darkness, surrounded by a being which you cannot comprehend nor touch, but one that resembles a demon that cannot be stopped. Throughout this entire fight, Giygas takes on numerous forms that are pretty creepy and borderline disturbing. Take this form for example. Many people have speculated that it's supposed to represent Giygas as a fetus, what with it looking a lot like a baby through an ultrasound. Also, Giygas keeps on saying these random phrases, these pieces of dialogue that are just creepy and weird as his strange form just continues to warp. This boss battle is especially creepy if you rename Ness into like your own real name, which I know a lot of us did when we were kids, and they just keep saying your name over and over and over again. Things only ramp up from here as Paula's prayers continues, which is something you need to do in order to defeat Giygas. His form, so too, changes as well, and it gets creepier and creepier and more sinister and just unfathomable. It's something you just can't find with most games nowadays, a boss that has no rhyme or reason and doesn't even know what it's doing. It's all pretty scary, and even though it all ends with the players and the party winning in the end, defeating Giygas once and for all and ending the horrible shit that would have happened in the future, one can't help but think about what they just saw, what they just read. What the hell just happened? Did we just commit an abortion? Well, to go back on the old theory of the devil machine looking like a womb or a cervix, many people speculated that in a way, Giygas' boss battle was an intergalactic eldritch abortion. After all, we are going to the past to stop Giygas during his weakest point, which is still very powerful, mind you, but stopping him now prevents him from being this horrible god he would have inevitably been. It's assumed that he's just, in a way, a baby, especially when you look at this one particular form of Giygas that looks way too much like a baby. However, let's just ruin a few things real quick by saying that the English writer of the Earthbound series has already debunked this theory, and while he acknowledges the fans' enthusiasm, the reality is many of us were just thinking too deep into this, and if you don't believe me, allegedly Shigesato Itoi already confirmed that this form of Giygas isn't really meant to look like anything, let alone a baby. I also read a long time ago that Devil's Machine wasn't actually meant to look like a womb either, but sadly I don't remember where I read that, if I even read that anywhere credible in the first place. Still, the theory of it being an intergalactic abortion is unfortunately false. I can't even believe I just said that, but that really just doesn't stop us from believing that at all. However, there is the absolute true fact that Giygas and dialogue was based on childhood trauma of the creator Shigesato Itoi. When he was a child, Itoi went to a movie to catch a flick with some friends when unfortunately he walked into the wrong theater. He mistook this one love scene between two characters to be a romantic one, but in reality it was, well, something not so consensual and advertiser friendly, if you know what I mean. This led to a multitude of imagery that, quote, assaulted Itoi's mind, unquote. One such imagery was the part where the main dude assaulting this woman grabbed her breast so hard that it became like putty and he could just shape it into whatever he wanted. This violent imagery of eroticism and violence was just too much for his mind and made a lasting impression on him ever since. And that's exactly what Giygas is based on. He's not really a horny creature or a violent one. I mean, he is kind of violent. He's just one that wants to be loved and wants to feel intimacy, to have human emotions, and to feel something, anything, but is stuck in this primordial phase of violence and raw nothingness. That's why when Giygas says it hurts, and I feel good, it was a way to convey Giygas' feeling of something other than raw, unbridled, emotionless violence. And yes, these are also lines from the movie Itoi watched, that film being called The Military Policeman and the Dismembered Beauty. Wow, great title. It was a difficult thing to find, as much of what Itoi described didn't really happen in the film. It was mainly his childhood imagination that got the best of him. Well, I mean that and age. I mean, this happened several decades ago. How would he remember every detail? Though I do think that, regardless, the imagination Itoi had while making Giygas and fully knowing that it came from a porno or snuff film, I mean, that's incredibly disturbing. Even if that's not the case, he thought that that was the case, and so the intent is still there. But in the end, there's so many things about Giygas that's really just incredibly scary, to the imagery, to the theories, to even the very genesis of the creature itself. Everything accumulated to this one horrifying creature in this one beautiful video game that started off with you just chasing your dog. This intangible being is the final boss. It all just sort of happened without any sort of notice. It's a lot like life. You have no idea what exactly it is, and you'll never know what it is that the future holds for you. It's something that'll surely haunt us for the rest of our years, and more to come. And that's why Giygas is possibly one of the scariest villains, if not the scariest villain ever created.